Reinforcements have arrived.
Spiky Bits.
Welcome back, Hobby Maniacs. I'm Robert from SpikyBits.com, and we are taking a look and going to unbox and build some of the new Sisters of Battle, I guess, what is this, Wave 3 for 2021. Now, just a quick background on Sisters of Battle, if you forget, or, you know, you're just getting into the hobby now. The Sisters came out Black Friday 2019, the Army box, and actually if you look in the codex, they show a combat patrol in there. Those models are actually the ones from the Army box. They're push fit, great looking models, pretty dynamic for what they are. Maybe I'll link the video so you can check that out of our unbox and build of that one. And then shortly later in January of 2020, before all the festivities kicked off with the quarantine stuff, the whole release wave of all the miniatures came out, and now in 2021 June we get these. And I don't know if these were supposed to come out beforehand, you know, and only an hour or a year would go by, elapsed time to the new update for 9th edition. It's really hard to say and kind of irrelevant, I guess, it's just at this point, except for the fact that they seem to be updating Sisters just as much as Space Marines when you compare Space Marines from, you know, the 2019 2018 to 2019 when 8th edition came out, and you compare Sisters in 2019 to 2021 when their basically second wave came out for 9th edition 40k. So it's a year push back and a year push forward, but basically it does seem to square up, which is really interesting. Of course, not as much Primaris stuff. So for this release, we're not going to unbox and build everything because we just don't have the time for it today, but I wanted to go over some of the releases. Of course, we've seen the Palatine. She already came out. She's $35. Then we got the Dogmata, which, you know, there was definitely some mixed feeling out there about her. She is one sprue as well, and has the different weapon options right there that you could see, the mace and stuff. She's actually a pretty good choice to take in your armies, and she definitely benefits the Paragon Warsuits quite a bit with her abilities as well, especially her war hymns, to say the least. This is a really, you know, at $35, really interesting model. You could probably convert your own if you really wanted to and you don't like the style of it, but it does come, I think, with 2 different heads. Yes, it does have 2 different heads, as well as the 2 different weapon options right there, the little Poke Grabber and the little Pokemon Grabber and the little Mace Windu thingy right there. So that's them. And then, of course, we get into the bigger kits where we got Morvenn Vahl, and she retails for, let me look at my cheat sheet right here. Where is she? I don't see her. I think she was 65. Oh gosh, I don't even see her on here. I'm pretty sure she was $65. We'll circle back to her here in a second. Then we got the Celestian Sacresants. This is a 5 model kit, and it comes with a bunch of different options. We're probably going to unbox this one and not build it, unfortunately, just because it's got a lot of stuff going on there. They are $55 US. Oh, there's Morvenn Vahl. She was $55 US. So take your pick. Either of these kits right here, $55 US. And then the Paragon Warsuits are $65 for 3 models, and we'll probably talk about them a little bit more in depth, but we're also going to unbox and build at least one of these. Now, don't forget, you can always get your hobbies for less at dicehead.com, your local game store, of course, Amazon, and, you know, allocation numbers for all of these were pretty good, so chances are you'll be able to find these out there if you want to buy multiples of any of these kits. Now, these particular Sacresant models, we'll start with them because we're really not going to see any more of them. Little decal sprue right there, or decal sheet, and also the instruction manual. And then you've got 3 seemingly identical sprues, but they are not actually identical. And we'll take a little closer look at them here in a second. But let's jump into the instructions right here and look at how different these are. So you're going to get the 3 sprues right there on 32mm bases. And then, of course, you can build the upgrade out of here, which I guess is called, what is she called? I don't know. Assembler. Superior. Oh, she's just a superior. Okay, that makes sense. So you can build the superior version of the model and 2 different weapon options if you want. You can do this glaive thing or this mace thing here. And then she is actually the only one that comes with the options for the pistol weapons right here, because normally the arms all come, boom, with actually the shield. It's like molded into it. So this is the only one that actually has options for the pistol weapons, and then you just build it out with the head, the backpack, everything pretty much. And you know what, let's take a little closer look because I didn't see. Yeah, so this is all the computer slice type deal that we saw with Primaris. So her front leg glues on, her back is connected to her left here, and or her left greave goes on as well. So it's very similar to Primaris, but of course not as big as a Primaris model. And then you just glue her head and her backpack on. And the rest of these look to be about the same. Oh, and there's a lot of head options too, which is really cool to see. And then you can decide on which weapon option you want to do. And then like I said right here, the shield actually has the bolt pistol molded into it, and then you glue the arm on. Kind of interesting concept. Of course, you know, I'm sure the Superior is the only one that can take the different pistol weapon options, so I guess I suppose it makes sense. And then this one has the glavy looking thing right there. And then these ones all have the mace. So it's the mace. She comes with the spear, and the other ones come with the glaive. That's pretty cool. I don't know what it's called because it's actually not on here, and I haven't really looked deeper dive into the codex quite yet because I was more worried about checking out all the stuff about the Warsuits, because those things are pretty interesting when it comes to points and things. Jumping back into the sprues here, you can see that they're pretty interesting. They do have a lot of the computer slices, lots of head options here as well. But you are going to have to shave the flash off. These aren't the easier to build kits or anything like that. I imagine they will probably take around maybe 5 to 6 hours for the whole kit, because you're going to have to shave off a lot of flash down the links of all these robes and things like that, which is kind of unfortunate but not unexpected. And like I said, they're not exactly the same. So you're going to have lots of different poses here, which is really cool. And then the one of these sprues has, and there's all the greaves and stuff, one of these sprues has all the, there they are, has all the pistol weapons right there. So everything's very well detailed. I mean, the shields are great. You've got the backpack ornamentation that looks pretty dope. And then all of the glaives and the maces. And the maces are really interesting with that slice, like just to give it that three-dimensional feel. And they could actually, you know, kind of do it in plastic. Like this one works, but I don't know why that one didn't work right there. It's just gonna probably look a little bit more dynamic, which is really cool. And since I started talking about Warsuits, let's jump to Warsuits here. So this is a pretty substantial amount of material in this box right here. So full-length sprues of the whole box, instruction manual, everything you would expect in here. Now these sprues are not identical, just like the Sacresants. So you're going to be able to get some variety here. Let's take a closer look at the instructions. I really like when they go the extra mile and they don't basically pigeonhole you into making 3 exact copies of everything, which is really neat. So here's the 3 different sprues, and you can tell they are indeed very dissimilar, well, similar, but also not exactly the same. And then it tells you basically you can build the different variants here, and they color coded them. But what I suspect, just looking at this, is we're going to be able to do something pretty cool. So you can build Paragon Superior, which would be their, you know, Sergeant T upgrade, or just a normal Paragon suit here. And then when you start kind of looking at it, remember these are all on 50 mil bases, which I don't think I showed you, but they are. They do come with 3 50 mil bases. There's a lot of assembly, a lot of fiddliness to this. Think Centurions. Remember the old Centurion kit for Marines? They were about the same size, and they just took forever. So I would really anticipate these 3 models taking probably, you know, 2.5 hours each to assemble, you know, maybe as long as that Sacresant box, just because you've got so much going on, like all these different pieces and halves of legs and things like that. I don't see any gotchas, and of course you got options on your ornamentation right here, which is really cool. But like the shoulder pads, 2 different pieces here, and then you've got the heads, which they tell you to kind of socket in here, but I don't know if you can just slide them on top, or you can just pop it in depending on which one you want to do. I'll actually check that because that would be advantageous. And then you have the different shoulder mounted options, whether it's rockets or some sort of bolter thing here. Unclear whether you could magnetize that. I suppose you could, but I think at the end of the day, you know, I kind of harp on these little fiddly parts. Like, you know, do you really need to show grenades? Do you really need to be like, oh, okay, well, this is really rockets, and oh, I didn't put the little bits on there for rockets, but I want to use them as heavy bolters. Like, you know, I just feel at the end of the day, you just got to really cut some people some slack on that sort of thing, because there's only so much things you can leave off or rebuild, and you don't want to like glue them down, but then you would have to spend another $60-some on a kit. So for me, I just feel like when it comes to stuff like this, I'll just glue one of them on and I'll be like, yo, hey, it's got the missiles. Like, is it really a deal breaker? Like, come on. You know what I'm saying? If you just can't magnetize it, because it's just so fiddly and so hard to do. But over here, you've got the arm that locks in, and then you've got at 3 different points, because they have these feed lines. Remember, it's a servo sort of thing, so her arms are actually controlling the weapon arms. And then here, at some point, you have to choose which weapon you want, and they all have individual power feeds, and they all have, the individual weapon as well, but they all go off of the same arm bit. So I'm wondering if we can just glue this arm bit into here, and then it seems like it has this little nub, and the nub could maybe lock in, and you wouldn't have to magnetize any of this. With a little luck, there'll be some tension here, and it'll just kind of sit up here if you glue this part on. So another reason for gluing on the shoulder mount is it actually forms part of the assembly that the power feed or the ammo hoppers, well, I guess they're all power feeds. Yeah, they're all power feeds that actually lock into. The right arm is actually split power feed wise, which should lock in pretty good. They've gotten really good at that design, and I mean, all of this design, you can tell, it just makes it so three-dimensional, and they hide the cracks and everything like that. But we'll check it out when we get it assembled. You got 2 different weapon options here, which is really interesting because one looks to be much bigger. I guess that's the Paragon, the Sister Superior blade, or the mace if you really want that, and then you put this additional power feed on here, so you got to double dip in power feed, so that's just going to look really, really cool. And then you just glue the top to the bottom. I think they're so small you don't magnetize that, so you just lock it down and you're good. Although I would worry about maybe the helmet options. If you wanted to paint the flesh separately and then pop it in and glue it, I would almost leave the head off and paint those separately, because it's going to be really hard to get in there and do that. And if you can just lock it in or drop it in, it seems like a very easy thing to do. And then you've got the other copies here, which are all very similar, just slightly different poses, and they don't have the second sword because they're not the superior variant. So then once you get all 3 together, it should look something like this, and you can do a mix and match of heads and things. It seems, I'm not seeing anything I'm too worried about. I just, there's the little fiddly bits up there when it comes to the shoulder mount. So let's take a look at the sprues. Right here, I mean, this is a good problem to have, I suppose, but this is literally, I'm pretty sure these are all divided up. We'll find out shortly. This is 1 Warsuit's worth of parts. So one little Warsuit that's like maybe 2 inches tall on a 50 mil base. This is all the parts for that one model. So it's going to take some time to get them off here, because you're going to have to shave off all the flash. It's on a plane. I do like how they put these little protective nubs in here, or ejection. I think this ejects it. These are supposed to protect it. They attack, they protect. I don't know. But this is a lot of parts for one little model, and they're great, and they're rendered, and everything looks super fresh. I mean, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 head options depending on what you want to do here, and I'm not sure if that, there's multiple head options on the other ones too. Lots of fiddly bits, like you've got this back ornamentation here, another one over here, you've got all your weapon options, and then one of these is going to have 2 swords on it because that's the superiorist. These little icons that I didn't realize when I was looking at the instructions until I just saw it on here. There's a little bolt pistol that goes on the hip, and on the other hip there's ammo pouches for it, so she can actually use her little hands to fire a bolt pistol or reload a bolt pistol. It's crazy. So these things, and then these things, these are my strong hands, they go on the front, and I guess control all the servos, and it's like almost like the Matrix Warsuit, I guess, a little bit, which is kind of cool to see. And man, there's so many little parts. So many parts. And then this one, pretty much the same, just got the 2 different swords. One's for the superior, kind of ginormous, and it's at a different little angle. And we actually didn't talk about the swords either. I think that's going to be, you're just going to have to choose, because this little part, you're not going to have a lot of connection points right there. So unfortunately, I think when it comes to weapon options, you're going to have to choose. And that's one of those things like, oh well, I don't want the mace, I want the other thingy. you're not really going to be able to do that. So I think we as a community should probably not penalize people, you know, because maybe that thing's, I think one of these is strength 9, one of these isn't. That's a tough one. You know, maybe you could switch it between the top here and have more of a spear instead of a sword. That's just really tough. There's not a lot of options here as far as attaching the hands to this right here and being able to interchange them, and it's kind of frustrating. So maybe there'll be some 3D printed options out there where you can slice that off and actually magnetize them. And I think, you know, we might start seeing more of that with some of the folks out there where they make complementary bits to go with these kits to make them fully magnetizable, because, you know, as we've seen with 8th and 9th edition, it's really good to be fully magnetizable and aka future proof your stuff. But you know, at the end of the day, you could, if you really need to, just save your bits, you know, and then just slot, you know, just cut it off and try to glue it on the best you can. I mean, you could, if you're using the mace, just cut this out and put it, you know, put it in your bits bin and just hold on to it. Or, you know, the same with the weapons here, especially if they just slot in. And if you sell your army, then, you know, you got all the extra bits. Yay, bits. So here is an assembled model, and it's crazy. These are way smaller than I thought they were. So let's compare it real quick. So here is a sister painted by Castlebrush Studios over in the EU. And yeah, I mean, it scales up right to what the preview pictures, but I don't know. I thought they were going to be a little bit bigger, which kind of makes sense, you know. So there's a Primaris. So the Primaris comes up to her chest, but let's take a look at the box. The funny thing is, when it comes to, you know, most of these box sets, the models are actually full scale, like 1-for-1, which they are. Like this one is a little bit more squattier pose wise than the sister in the middle, but they are 100% to scale. In a lot of cases, you know, they'll say, hey, not to scale if they aren't, but I haven't seen many instances where they say not to scale on the box set. So I guess I should have assumed once I saw the box about how big it was. Now, there's the ammo pouches, there's the little bolt pistol in a holster, so she can actually gat if she needs to. The head actually pops in after you glue this on the front. There have weird little nubs for different ones at different angles, but you can definitely lock it in. And then I just used a little blue tack here on this. The mace is floating around here somewhere, but I figured just for now, that would be a good alternative. Although it holds pretty well, so you almost could just kind of peel a little of this off and just use that instead of using a magnet to just attach it on there. Just make sure you have it when you put it back in your case, because then you wouldn't have to worry about a little teeny tiny magnet, because let me tell you what, that is going to be a little teeny tiny magnet, and I just don't think it's worth it when it comes to that one or these weapons up here. But I mean, look at the styling of it, and you know, you don't see the slices, you don't see any of that stuff when it comes to all of the assembly. Now, there are some mold lines and there are a few things that probably could have applied a little bit more glue to, but we were kind of, you know, a little rushed today, so not that big of a deal. Now, when it comes to this stuff, I didn't actually glue this on or this right here, and it just actually slots out. So you can glue this arm on, and then you can, with a little bit of tension, this will slot in and it just will hold. So depending on which weapon, you can put them all on there and it just locks into here, but you do have to glue that on, unfortunately. So not exactly a big deal or a deal breaker. Like I said, I think we need to kind of chill with that. Oh, that's not the rockets. Like, dog, can you even see there's rockets? Those look like rockets. Like, let's not shame each other for little fiddly stuff like that. Like, it's just so silly. But I feel like a little blue tack right there will definitely go a long ways for sure. Now let's take a look at the next, or the newest, or the current, whatever. Boom, like magic. Morvenn Vahl. So judging by the shake test, not a lot of material in here, unfortunately. Kind of sad, but and she's just as much as I think the Sacresants, so $55. Now I forgot to mention there was a little snafu with the Paragon Warsuits, because they're actually pointed at, in the codex it says they're 240 points each. It's probably a typo. They're probably 80 points each, probably. It says, you know, they're immune to or damage they take is reduced by -1, with no caveat to a minimum of 1, making them invulnerable to like bolter fire and stuff. Which is kind of interesting, but I don't think the way it's going to be. She's also on a 60 mil base, so a little bit bigger than the smaller sister suit right here. I imagine she's going to stand taller, judging by her full-size mock-up right here. So that's kind of interesting too. Now let's take a look at the instructions and figure out all there is to see beforehand. So the instruction manual is actually pretty small too. Now, one sprue, 60 mil base, 2 different head options, probably it. She's gonna go together a little bit less complicated, it looks like, because if you think about it, it does seem like there's just as many parts on here as the Paragon Warsuit, but they're spaced out a lot more, where the Paragon Warsuits, they're locked in. So that kind of makes sense, I suppose. So she's got some joint pieces here. More power, it looks like her power supply. Front piece locks in. They're not telling you to put the head on yet, which is cool. She's got her little boop, boop arms, little strong hands. Looks like they go together in 2 parts. And then over here, more power feeds. Lock in her bolter, which you don't have to do anything with because it's the only way she comes. And then you put the front armor piece on it, and it's got this 3-part. Ooh, it's got this 3-part bolter thing. Look at that. Oh, okay, that's probably okay. We've seen good things out of GW with that. And then the front muzzle. This is interesting. A little clam combiner here for the shoulder pad. And then you've got the top pretty much assembled except for the spear arm, and then the legs go together again with the greaves on the front. And then this configuration here with her tabard and some sort of lower torso thing. Over here, something similar. And then the 2 halves locked together. Then her spear arm has an armor plate on the top. That locks in with the 2-part shoulder pad. I don't know why they did 2 parts of shoulder pads right there. And then you glue the top to the bottom again. These are small enough you probably don't have to worry about magnetizing them. And it's got a little terrain piece right there. Now normally I'm always like, hey, use some resin sand from Liquitex. You can get a bottle of that off of Amazon for like 15 bucks to really smooth that in and kind of cover it up like they did right there, which you can do with a little bit of flock, but otherwise you're going to have that fillet around it, which I'll show you here in a second. And then she's got her option head. So normal style hair, kind of like a, what is that, short hair bob or whatever they call it, and then an armored head. There it is right there. So 3 different head options. Not sure which I'm going to pick. I need to see the rockets in there. I don't know how the rockets go together. We'll check that out here in a second. Back to the sprue. Well, the sprue's probably looking good here. Let's slide this up a little bit. I think, like I said, there's definitely a lot of room in here, but detail-wise, everything looks pretty fresh. You know, there's a spear. Spear's got a lot of detail on it, right down to in there. All sorts of vents and hoses, and this is kind of crazy right here too. It just looks really good. I think her chest had some. Where's her chest plate at? There it is. Oh, the rockets are molded in. That's pretty cool. Yeah, chest has some detail in there, bolters, and then here's the base here. Kind of crazy looking. I don't know what the heck was that? Is that a wall with some? Of course, it's got skulls all over it. Oh, it's got a little high heel print to stick in there. But it's crazy, like these high heels. I'm so glad this is one piece here, because the double ones from the Paragon was kind of crazy. And then the left and right halves of the shoulders, and then there's the bolter feed. And pointing finger with the spear. That spear is ginormous. Holy cow. That thing's like solid 3.5 inches, maybe even 4, probably 3.5. Kind of crazy. All right, well, let's see how it goes together. Woo! Look at that thrust. That's a fine thrust. This kit, wow, it's it's obviously dynamic, but not very convertible, very much like the Dread Knight. Like the Dread Knight looks cool, but it'd look even cooler if it had like a running pose or something like that. So you're pretty much locked into this particular pose right here. You don't have any options. Like you can't do much with this little skirt she's got going on. And, I didn't talk about it with the Paragon Warsuits, but you probably want to use a little bit of Vallejo, or not Vallejo, excuse me, Tamiya super thin cement, because you can really shore up these gaps that are going to be in the robe right here. They can be kind of noticeable, but if you put a super thin cement in there, even after, like if you didn't get them to seal, you can put a little in there after, wipe it away, with a little wet paper towel, and you should be good to go as far as that goes. Now, great looking base, of course, like I said, a little resin sand from Liquitex. You can thin that together with the rest of the base here, so you don't have this big, you know, super open thing. Or you can use some G-Dub texture paint, whatever tickles your hobby pickle. You know, it's up to you, of course. This is a ginormous heavy bolter, you know, style weapon. It's not actually a heavy bolter. Now, our head you can obviously put in, or a couple different ones after you get it all assembled up. But I mean, it's just very striking, very well detailed. Got a lot of crisp detail in there, and in the vents and everything, like we already saw. I didn't realize she had a little Inquisition eye kind of hanging down there. Now, what I noticed, I used some blue tack just to glue her down, because, you know, whoever gets this on our Patron will kind of have to probably want to paint the base separately, I would imagine. So that would save some time right there. The back, the bullets go together pretty good too. There's just, you can see with some spots where there's a lot of flash, so you're gonna want to trim that all down. And this styling is pretty interesting up here too. It's very it's got a pleasing aesthetic, I guess, because it's like the little choir angels, but it also kind of disguises the thermal exhaust ports. I noticed too on the spear arm here, there's these little nubs on the back. You couldn't really see it in the diagram, and those help to actually prop up and support the spear, because there's corresponding little sockets on the inside too. So I was like, you know what, we instead of using a magnet, which you could use a magnet like a 3/16 by 1/16 inch magnet, and just kind of shave the back off this a little bit if you really wanted to, but you could just as easily put a little bit of blue tack in there. It would completely hide, and you'd never have to worry about it. And as long as you just made sure you have the spear before you put it back into your box or carrying tray, you would just be good to go. And there it is. Like, you just pull that little bit down, and you're super good to go. But oh, she's kind of falling off the base now. I jostled it a little too much with the blue tack, but a cool looking mini, and you can do a lot with it too, I think, as far as storage, just by if you don't glue down that spear. Now, here's how she compares to a normal Warsuit. So standing kind of squatted down, she is about roughly the same size, give or take. Kind of shocking, didn't really expect that, but a little bit more dynamic, a little bit more posable. And then, you know, as you expected, the sister goes up to roughly her waist. Let's see if the Primaris Marine goes up to her chest. Well, not necessarily on this one, because she's standing on the piece of rubble right there. Rubble. But, you know, that's just kind of what it's all about. So, very cool kit. Goes together. It's probably about a third of a time as a Paragon Warsuit, so say 45, maybe, just to make sure you get all your flash off, probably like an hour. Give it about an hour's worth of time. So that is it for this one, folks. Thank you very much for watching our unboxing build of all the new Sisters of Battle models from Games Workshop June 2021. Now, if you'd like to get stuff like this back in the mail every month in a mystery crate kind of format, we call it the miniatures crate. We have lots of different options over on Patreon, and not only do you get miniatures back, but you also get ad-free access to the site, a buffet of sampler miniatures, 3D downloads, as well as 3D prints as well. And we have all sorts of different levels that you can pledge. Some of them are sold out, some of them are almost sold out for this month. So if you've been thinking about supporting us, well, we got a couple of spots open. We'd love to have you jump on, and there's still time left to get a crate this month in June.